Walter.
Hi, how are you?
Very good. Thanks a lot for joining.
Yeah, no problem. You sent 2 links and I was in the other link.
Yeah, right. But that one expired 45 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Right. Walter, first of all, do you have 40 minutes, 30 minutes?
That's fine, yeah.
Yeah, all right. Thank you very much. It's very generous nowadays.
No problem.
All right. Well, look. Okay. We'll be talking about several things. The first part is more or less scientific one. Well, the second one is more or less artistic one.
Okay. Sounds good.
And you've got a reputation of a sort of scientific philosopher or artistic scientist. And I'm very, very curious about this definitions. And I would rather discover the existent or non-existent border or frontier or convergence between art and science. Well, my first question, well, I've got a list of questions here,
okay,
but I would try to do it less boring for all of us, especially for you. I don't want to bore you to death. No. It should be fun. But anyway, I'm trying to follow the list, and then we'll go somewhere else, as always.
Yep.
Well, the first question is it's a banality, right? But as a scientist, working very deep inside the contemporary biology, with a medical background, which is rare, what's your forecast for current pandemic? How long it's gonna terrorize all of us?
I think it's very, very hard to say. If there's different projections and small changes in the models which you use can translate into weeks, months of differences. But my own estimation would be that we're probably gonna have severe restrictions for the next 2 months, and it will probably take till end of the year till life somehow goes back to normal. But on the other hand, for instance, the Spanish flu absolutely abruptly ended. In November 1918, it just
like that. It was switched off.
Yeah, nobody knows why.
But before that, it killed like 100 million people.
Between 50 and 100 million, yeah.
Worldwide. See. It's a very good end. I've read an article by Derek Lowe about this like a pharmaceutical effort to put an end for the pandemic, and he's very sort of pessimistic or realistic. He said that will take a year and a half to overcome like medically the whole bunch of consequences of it.
Well, I mean, our track record in overcoming viral diseases medically is not very good. The only example where it really worked is HIV, and that took 5-6 years. But influenza, well, we have vaccinations, but they're not hugely protective. And we have nothing against coronaviruses or common cold viruses. So my very first project in the lab was actually working on common cold viruses. And the intention was to come up with a drug which prevents common cold, because common cold is actually the single disease which causes the most economic damage, because everybody of us has a cold.
Yeah. It's like trillions of dollars worldwide.
Yeah. And we still don't have a cure, no cure. We still sneeze in a handkerchief.
Handkerchief. It's a major weapon.
Yes.
Humanity came up with for 2 centuries. Yeah, right. I mean, all things are not necessarily bad things. That's a good large-size handkerchief is good enough.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not actually, given the huge research effort which is now concentrated on corona, I'm actually more optimistic than with other things, because we have learned much better or we have now technologies we didn't have before, like siRNA, CRISPR technologies. And also we have learned from structural, for instance, how to make drugs which are very specific for viral proteins versus human proteins. So I think we have technologies, which we never had before. So I'm slightly more optimistic in this case, but it still will take, 1 or 2 years, because if you give the normal drug development cycle, you're talking 15 to 17 years nowadays.
Yeah.
Even if we can cut this, 3 times, we're still talking about 2 years.
Yeah. So there's no, I would rather say that there's no pharmaceutical shortcut.
Unless there's a drug around which works, like chloroquine or some of the other drugs.
Well, I doubt it. Because the procedures are still procedures, They cannot let it go with no clear understanding of all the consequences. No.
I agree, yeah.
So, there's nothing radical the industry could afford to shorten the way of a drug or pill or whatever to whoever needs it, right? So there's a procedure, protocol is protocol, and it's very strict, and it's unavoidable, I believe.
I would agree with that, yes.
And so there's no shortcut anyway. All right, so that's 2 years all over, and so there's an opinion that we can easily say that nature strikes back using some sort of biological weapons like COVID-19, since humanity has been invading the territory of nature on a larger scale.
I don't think it's nature striking back. We always have been living with viruses. It's just like viruses are a stage in evolution and in development, and so are bacteria, and we always have been coexistent. It's a fight. We adapt, viruses adapt, and sometimes actually, there is a productive result for both. For instance, if you think of, let's take bacteria. We couldn't live with our bacteria in the gut or on the skin. They actually do very useful things, and they also can do very bad things. But I think the broader, or rephrasing your question, I don't think it's nature striking back. I think we are constantly learning what our place in nature is, and it's changing. It's not something where we find the place and we'll stay there. Nature is a dynamic system. So we always have to refine the place where we are and how we interact with our environment. And of course, a lot of things we have done wrong, and we do wrong, for instance, environmental pollution. But I think it's a process of how we interact with our environment and how we interact with nature, and it's a process which never comes to an end. So there's no win or lose in that sense. It's more a constant adaptation, and we shape our environment, but our environment then shapes us.
Somehow. It's reshaped us somehow. Yeah. And the environment itself is more complicated than just nature. It's all around us.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So information, for example, is a part of our environment, right?
Yeah, and that if you just look at information, that has so dramatically changed in the last 10 years.
See?
10 years ago, we couldn't have had this conversation because there was no Zoom.
No, well, that's early age of Skype.
Yeah.
Yeah, with no clear vision whatsoever. But look, if we're talking about a complicated environment, and we're talking about technologies as well, and we're talking about information or post-information age we're living in. What do you think of what they call infodemic, which is going alongside the pandemic itself?
It's actually worse than, I think the infodemic is worse than the pandemic, because the pandemic may go away one day, the infodemic won't.
Really?
The infodemic is steadily increasing.
Yeah, ever since. Yeah, but hey, it is creating, it's keep creating the waves of panic. And there's a different sources of these waves, and they're interfering and creating a chaos and havoc, like informational havoc, which common people could not get rid of.
Yeah, I think there's two main problems with this information overload. The one is we are not made for this. You know, humans cannot deal with a huge amount of information at the same time. There's actually scientific studies which basically, with simple experiments, show that we can deal with 3 up to 5 bits of information at one time, and that's it. We're constantly getting, showered with many more. So that means our selectivity, what we hear, increases, because we tend to pick out of the stream of information what we want to see and what we want to hear. So we lose objectivity. And it just becomes a reinforcing process that our pre-existing opinions are constantly reinforced. That means your mind closes. And you're not, because you simply pick out the things which you know and which you like. And for instance, if you have now all the news agencies offer these services that they only send you the news which you like and which you're interested in, it's a prime example for narrowing your horizon. Because
customized news.
Yeah.
Or customized advertising.
This is almost as bad as censorship. Customized news is self-censorship, because you only hear what you like to hear.
I would rather say it's a different end of a stick. The stick is very safe, but it's a different end of it.
Yeah, and
there's 2 ends of a stick, and this sort of involuntary censorship, I would rather say. Well, hey, that's very interesting. The thing you're saying, it is very interesting, because it's a key for understanding of this infodemic. That's where it came from.
Yeah, but I think
the biological reason people could not analyze more than can have, but they're forced to analyze and work with a massive amount of information which is undigestible for them.
Yeah, but I also think that the other problem is that we actually forget how to apply critical thinking, because information is so easily accessible that we simply can look things up. We don't even need to remember it. We simply can Google everything. But in order to actually have a critical thought process, you need to have at least a certain amount of knowledge in your head where you can put things together. And if you're just relying on looking things up, you lose the context. And I think that it actually may be more dangerous in the long term, because we forget how to critically think. And critical thinking is the basis of all science, of all research, but also a lot of culture in society. And so I actually think informatics with information overload is probably the most dangerous things which we have ahead of us.
We're changing.
We are changing, yes.
We get used to it,
Yeah, but I think to a limited, I hope we get used to it, but it will be, at the moment we're struggling because the technology is so fast and our evolution takes a little bit.
I agree. But can we say that the memory itself is a base for critical thinking, for some sort of some sort of human being resistance to the information waves. Just memory.
Yeah. Well, you need
to remember to have something against.
Yeah, you need to, in order to have a string of thoughts, a coherent framework of thoughts, not an isolated thought, but a hypothesis or a coherent framework, you need to have information in your head, which you can put together, where you can make conclusions or deductions and inferences. And if you don't have these memories in your head, you can't make this. I mean, the memories alone are not enough, but you cannot make a lot of conclusions without having any memories.
Well, I was talking about memory as a whole, memory, not necessarily memories, but memory as a machine, as a machine allowing you to retrieve something from the depths of
that's what.
And
that's what I meant,
put it against the reality, for example, or modified reality, or artificial reality, or whatever. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but that's exactly what I meant, yeah.
All right. So that was a word, danger. That's a dangerous thing, right? What does molecular biology say about the next threat or next danger to humanity? Yeah.
I'm maybe a disclaimer first. I mean, molecular biology or synthetic biology or these new things, it's like all technologies, they are not, it depends how we use them. The technologies by themselves can be always used for something good or something bad. And in molecular biology, for instance, the good uses will be that we understand more on a molecular level about how diseases are actually generated, and we may be able to interfere with them on a molecular level. For instance, if you take gene therapy, we are now in a position where we actually can manipulate genes, and you can, for instance, prevent or fix some hereditary diseases by simply repairing the gene. On the other hand, of course, you can do a lot of damage with it, because you can use it to generate clones or do evil things.
Evil.
The technology itself is ignorant.
Is there any criteria of evil still existing?
Yeah.
No. All right.
So I think it's up to us, what we make out of it.
It's up to us to decide.
But knowing humankind, both things will happen.
Look, you are one of the creators of what people call system biology or network biology, right?
Yeah.
This is your creation.
Can
you, in a few simple words, explain what it is?
Yeah.
Because I have understanding of what it is, but if you ask me to explain, I would rather find no word for it.
So I like to, this is actually coming from my days as a clinician. I like to view an organism as a collection of cells, like a community as a collection of people. And so I see network biology from a very social point. It's like cells need to communicate,
Beautiful.
People need to communicate, and if we miscommunicate, things go wrong. And in the case of our bodies, that results in disease. And so we go about trying to address or understand diseases and treat diseases like we would treat communication networks between people. And there's actually a lot of analogies. So for instance, typically one person can interact with another person, but they can interact with many persons, sometimes sequentially, sometimes at the same times, and that will produce different outcomes. Or, in the evening you can be a cook. During the day you can be a plumber. Then you have to walking your dog. And it's the same in our cells. One protein can have many different functions. And this is something what we always struggle to understand, because the original dogma of molecular biology was one gene, one protein, one function. And that's not the case.
No.
One protein can be everything, many functions. But this is the same like in a society, you know, where you can do different things, and one person can be a cook, can be a dog walker.
Yeah, it's very easy to use this for the society.
Yes.
If there's there's a clear understanding
for me,
of
it's
how
more,
this works.
It's like a social science just applied to molecules.
Yeah. It's like, it's very, it's very close to the practices of social science. And practices of social science are the basement for contemporary art, for example.
Yeah.
So that's the link. That's the link between what you're doing and where we're living.
But look, a long time ago, art and medicine were not very far away.
No, not at all. Art and medicine, yeah, it's the very same level of ignorance, I believe.
Yes, for instance.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point to talk a little bit about this frontier or border between science and art. Does it still exist?
Yeah,
What are you thinking about it?
I think it actually has grown more apart, because science has tended to become more specialized in areas. And for me, art always had something what tried to be more unifying. So art is something that brings out unifying thoughts, or something, where you have like a main idea which can have different shapes, whereas in science we have tended to become very diversified and losing a little bit sight of this holistic view. But I think this is something where, science it would be good to bring a little bit more art back into science. And the scientific process per se is actually a very artistic process, because it's creativity.
Yeah.
And, this is really what is pushing the scientific boundaries, and it doesn't matter whether this is physics, biology, or chemistry, or whatever other type of science. It needs creativity at the bottom to move things. And in science, you just express creativity in a different way, like you do experiments, or you deduce formulas, or you try to make a drug. In art, you make a painting, a sculpture,
whatever object.
So yeah, but it is an expression of your ideas. And in science, it's the same. Doing an experiment is nothing else than implementing an idea, carrying it out, carrying something out what used to exist in your head.
That's very important.
Yeah, so I think the thought process is very, very similar. It's just, and it would be actually liberating of getting more of this free thinking back into science, because unfortunately what has happened, because science became so application oriented, scientists were...
Education, you said?
Well, application oriented.
Application, oh yeah, applied, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, art also has its applied sector. It's a very domesticated one.
Yeah, and I think this is a very unsatisfactory, development. So, for instance, especially during the financial crisis, there was a big push in all the European countries of that all of a sudden science should do something useful for society because society pays for it. And yes, I accept that point. But on the other hand, the strength of science always was creativity. If you wanted just to produce something, that's manufacturing. It's not science. But sort of like trying to make science useful, you kill the essence of it.
I like this attitude. So that's the only possible attitude towards this thing. Yeah, no manufacturing.
Yeah.
Handcrafted things. No mass manufacturing. No. You're right. Right. There's another question about this. Listen, there's something in the air. Like everybody's predicting some sort of dramatic changes after the pandemic. So Yuval Noah Harari, who I respect very much, said that the life will be of this generation and generation ahead will be divided like before the pandemic and after. Life wouldn't be the same anyway. And we feel like it's a common demand for changes, at least in the art world, which was in a deep crisis for at least last 10 years. Something should be changed, or something will change. What do you think about it? Do you feel this sentiment?
I'm sure there will be a big change. I'm not sure how fundamental it will be, because for a fundamental change, you need two things: a disruptive event like the pandemic, but then new thoughts. And I hope these new thoughts come, but this will make the difference. The pandemic we already have, so the disruptive event we have, but now it's about having really a new line of thoughts, new ideas, which then will structure whatever comes in the aftermath or in the wake of the pandemic. And this will make the decision whether it's really a fundamental change or not. I mean, certainly one thing I think will change is the way we work. We all work from home now, and it actually works surprisingly well. Really? So, yes, I was very skeptical, but it actually, for me, it works surprisingly well. I still prefer personal meetings, but it's better than I expected.
It's like something very, it's an artificial decision anyway.
No, it is artificial. Was my thought. This never will work, but it's. So I would presume that a lot of work life will become remote instead of sitting in an office. People will be sitting at home and.
Yeah, it might be for the best. Yeah. It will save plenty of office space.
It will plenty of office space. It will save costs. Personally, I prefer personal interactions, but I think this is definitely something that is going to change. In terms of science or arts, it really depends on whether we have what we take out of this and what new ideas come out of this.
It's all about the creative thinking, I believe.
Exactly.
How can you describe the creative thinking? What it's all about?
It's hard to explain, but when you see it, it is creative thinking. It's something which is hard to
describe, but
it when you see it.
The fox. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway. Well, I have my own description for it, my own definition of creative.
Well, what is that? What is your definition?
Well, creative thinking is some sort of inner radar, allowing ones to go through all the obstacles to the very high horizon.
Uh-huh. Yeah, for me, I don't know For me, it's a little bit like a sandbox. When a child, you sit in a sandbox and you build different things.
Sandbox?
Yeah. So this is how my brain works.
Nah.
So it's playing with ideas, with thoughts, with objects, and then sometimes, something falls in place where you go, oh yeah, this is beautiful, that's it. But this is...
So placing things in order, or what? Placing things to their own instant places.
This is part of it, but the creative act is more playing with things.
Playing.
Yeah, so this is like when a child in a sandbox builds a castle, you basically have something what has no form, the sand, and you put it into different shapes and forms till you get what you like. And this is the same what you can do with your ideas and your thoughts. And this is, for instance, how my brain works, where I would say, if I had to describe how my thinking works, it's playing with ideas, shapes, forms, and trying to fit it together to either find a solution for something or to, just create something what you have actually thought before. But it's the act of creativity is, I think, a playful act. It's something. Yeah.
That's what I want to stress out. It's a playful mind, right? Playing strange games with different realities.
Yeah. But I mean, if you look at how children learn, children learn by playing. They explore their environment by playing with it. And I think this is something which is a very strong principle in you can learn something about the world by experimenting, by playing with it. And playing means simply you have no purpose. You're just open for influences. You're open for what you encounter.
And no purpose. Or rather,
no bias. No bias. What I mean with purpose, you have an open
different.
mind.
Purpose is different. It could be.
Yeah, you could have a purpose of solving a problem, but you have to have an open mind.
Yeah, to overcome the obstacle, for example, to open up something different for yourself. But
and you have to be ready to accept things which you don't like or which you actually don't want.
Oh, we've learned a lot about that. We've learned a lot about that.
Yeah.
Well, world champions of revelations of this sort. Right. You like art, right? Don't you?
Yeah.
You collect art.
Well,
yeah, there's something here in your office. What sort of art do you like? I understand it's a very private question, but may I allow?
I like paintings, and I like music, and I like actually glass objects.
Glass object.
Yeah.
Well, I really love glass. Look at this. Yeah. I really love ancient glass, like late Roman glass, for example. Or so that's my favorite. Glass is a great material. It's hard, but it's fragile. It's hard to get, but it's everywhere.
But it's wonderful.
It's transparent. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can see through it. Yeah. It's the most important thing. Yep. It's 38 minutes. We're done.
That went past, was flying.
Thank you very, very much. It was
You're very welcome.
Very interesting. And
good luck with your project.
Appreciate your time. Thank you very much.